Hello, lovelies, and welcome to Breaking the Block, Readily Chat, author chat. We gonna have some interesting topics today. We're talking about pets and parents as characters, side characters, and things in books. Let us say hello to everyone in the chat. I was there. Rachel was there. The 5 minute warning to get your cuppa. Good morning, Kappa. How are you? Sky is here, hanging out in the chat doing laundry. Mom life. Yep. Lauren Eddles. Hello, lovely. Hope you have a good day at work. And Sam Wicker. Hello, lovely. Welcome. We hope that you are having a good weekend. So today we have got some interesting topics to go on. I don't know how many are watching this. A lot of us were watching it. But the author Aaron Lee thing, that we all understand there are some people that don't look as pets as having people or having souls, but yeah, that blew up on Threads. If you don't know what happened, she's a dark fantasy writer. Her debut is coming out this month, and she basically committed author suicide in the 2 weeks before her new release because she criticized one of her beta readers for being upset about a scene where a dog dies, and that happens in real life and it happens things, but she publicly outed on this, and the reader backlash was kind of crazy. People love their dogs. There's a reason that they say, I don't care who dies as long as the dog lives.
True.
And she has like a master's degree in psychology. She's like an author and working toward a PhD of something. And she really started getting on people for their reactions to how she was reacting, how her beta reader reacted to this dog's death. And she says, people are ridiculous. Dogs aren't really your children. You shouldn't think about them that way and stuff. And I don't think she realizes the dog culture, the pet culture of the United States, especially right now when a lot of people are choosing pets as child surrogates because, you know, I saw this meme the other day. It costs $6,000 a year to provide for a dog, and it costs $36,000 a year to provide for a child. So why not have 6 dogs?
Because I can't afford one.
It was a pretty crazy thing. And you know, it's dark fantasy. Maybe her beta reader wasn't a dark fantasy reader, wasn't aware that part of dark fantasy is here's your trauma. You know, that is a very good possibility. Several of the Threads things got deleted. Then she got called out for them being deleted, and then it was all a thing, and a whole bunch of people went to her book release page and review bombed her book. She's got dozens of 1-star reviews now, simply based on what happened on Threads. And please don't do that to authors. If you hate them, if you hate their politics, if you hate their social moral compass, that is one thing. You can not support them by not writing their books, but please don't review them on people. That's just bad manners.
Agreed. And besides, you're not really review bombing them because of what's in the book. You didn't read, most of these people didn't read the book, right? They're just
the book's not even out. The book isn't out till the 25th.
Yeah.
That's why I was like, she committed pre-release author suicide.
So, yeah.
So, yeah.
No, I don't understand. I don't understand where the disconnect is between her having the credentials that she has and not comprehending how people feel about the situation.
Yeah.
I think it was her bad, not the writing of it. because I mean, I read Pet Cemetery when I was what, 12, 13.
I think I was the same age. That was like horrifying.
Cujo, it's like,
Cujo was traumatizing to me.
yeah,
Like,
it was tough, but at the same time, it's part of the genre,
where the red fern grows.
Oh,
We
yes.
all had to read that in school.
Yep.
And spoiler, when you get to the part where the dogs die at the end of the book, I was reading it. It was, I think, 8th grade English. Me and one of the jocks were the faster readers in the class. And he was one of the popular guys. And I was that super smart, nerdy girl that was the ice princess, iced out everyone. And we hit that thing at the same time because we were the fast readers in the class. And Mrs. Martin was a sweetheart. She's like, okay, finish it. And then you two need to go sit out in the hall. And because we were reading it together as a class. And the two of us, the popular girl and the popular guy and the geeky girl, were literally sitting in the hall, clutching onto each other, sobbing hysterically.
Yeah.
And everyone else in the class is like, what the hell happened? What the hell happened?
Yeah. But it's one thing to have it in a book. It's another thing to then be mean and apathetic.
Have such a lack of empathy for
Yeah.
how others.
And the beta reader is there to give you feedback.
Yeah.
So why are you then, that's a topic unto itself. Your beta readers are there to give you feedback. Whether you like it or not is not their problem. They're there to give you feedback. They're being honest about how they feel about what they just read so that you can take that and go, okay, so what do I need to do to fix this? Or do I feel like they're not used to this genre and this style, so maybe it's not something to be fixed? That's up to you. But it's not up to you to then go and disparage them anywhere. That's
and then to wrong. Attack everyone else that was defending them. That I don't know this person, never read any of her stuff, never heard about this until I got tagged and I was in a group, and then I got tagged on another thing about, can you believe this person? And then it was just like,
yeah, Sir Milo has entered our story realm now.
Yeah. Oh, I have several cats in I have like in Cat Lady, How to Become a Crazy Cat Lady, to survive the zompocalypse. None of the cats die in there. I was very specific that none of the cats died fighting the zombies or protecting their people from the zombies. Yeah, it's concerning that someone who's planning a career in psychiatry and psychology does not have empathy for that kind of trauma. That was
a lot of people that agree on the chat too.
But so today's first topic, pets. Are they props or are they side characters? I had in Cat Lady, I had Rachel's cat Molly Moo, who passed away recently, poor dear.
Oh, you mean Jenna?
Jenna's, who did I say?
Me. Oh, you were looking at me, so that's why
I was looking at you. Rachel. Yeah, I was thinking of Milo. I was thinking of Milo and his next tour at the Renaissance Fair in his night costume. That's what I'm thinking about. But no, it's and in Pagosa Cliffs, there's a horse, Cajun the cattle pony, who is in several of the books, or at least mentioned. So he's 20-year-old horse, all the people who grew up there. He was Grandpa Ben's horse. Everybody knows Grandpa Ben. Everybody knows the Wallaces. They've all had experiences with Cajun. And so Cajun the cattle pony is this character who I kill him. He dies in book 5. I'm very sorry. He dies in book 5. He dies a hero. He dies saving two of the kids that are in the book from a forest fire. But it's, that was a really hard call to make. And it's like, then you have other places where you have a pet and the pet is just a piece of furniture. The pet is just, oh, this is the pet. no real interactions with the pet, no backstory with the pet, no empathy with the pet. So where do you draw the line between, do you make the pet the prop? Is it just there to like the obligatory gay best friend that was a trend for a while? Now is it just the pet friend, the obligatory pet friend, or are the pets actually full-fledged characters?
I believe that when people write who have had pets, you can see that shine through. So, I mean, it's like Emma Bennett in her, one of her books that I read, her hero, it was a fall book. Anyway, Her Perfect Hero, that was the name of the book. I wound up loving the cat more than anybody else in the book.
Mr. Darcy is my favorite character in the book.
So not disparaging Emma's writing. No, I mean, I liked her other characters too. It's like the main character and stuff, but the cat made such a comedic person, so to speak, that it's like part of it. You can tell. I mean, I just feel like you can tell if a writer has had pets, or they treat them more more human, like they're part of the story, like you're saying. Even if they're just like, Mr. Darcy didn't appear that often, like when you think about the entirety of the book, there were just a few scenes with him in it. So this cat still made quite an impression as a character, a side character. I honestly don't remember. Like even when we write, like I said, in the future, we've got a corgi in the future, with one of the characters has a corgi. But when we write about the corgi, he has a personality, just like any other dog or cat. They have personalities, and so if you've been around them, you know that to write the personality, and then you get more people enjoying, to me, in my opinion, when you do write that they have a personality and they're not just a prop. Now, when it comes to side, okay, so we have a rancher, and we also have people who own a horse ranch in our books, and we made sure that we knew what we were talking about. Dawn has experience with that, and so I have barely little experience.
I think Don and I shared a thing one time where we were laughing about the fact that I told you guys I was reading a book and the breed of cattle was literally changing mid-chapter. Because the person writing the book wasn't a farmer or ranch person, and they evidently thought Brahmas were bulls, did not realize that was its own breed.
That's a breed.
and that Herefords and Herefords are different thing.
Oh my goodness.
Heifers can be Herefords, but not all heifers are Herefords.
Yeah. So, but when it comes to those kind of animals, I know that we could give them personality, but they're just kind of there in the background for the most part. So they don't really. I think the one that had the most personality was Izzy's horse, whom she Dawn talked about, that she was the one that got her used to riding and everything, and the horse made some sort of snort when Izzy was talking to her and stuff. But otherwise, those animals for the most part have been in the background, and I guess it's due to the fact that they're being branched, and we're not really doing a lot with their personalities. But when it comes to like pets that are part of that character's life, then they get a little bit more personality. And I think that goes for your background characters versus your side characters. When you're dealing with movies, even, you've got your extras in the background doing stuff, right? And then you've got people who are actually part of the movie. And I see pets the same way. So I guess I do treat them like humans.
Yeah. I think I have a few pets that are props. Like there's one that the sister's cat, one of the sisters dies and the other sister has to take her old cat. And the old cat just wanders off and disappears after they move to the new town. And it's then it comes back and a friend takes the cat because the girl's not really a cat person. So but yeah, it's very interesting that you can have pets that are props that are just there in the background, and then you can have pets that are their own character, like in the what is it what was her name, Aaron Johnson's Pet Psychic series. um Daisy, even though it's about a witch whose powers have been bound, and she's basically an animagus. She can turn into animals, but her power gets bound and all of her magic gets bound. So the only thing she can do now is she now hears all animals. She can like talk to them. So she can't do magic anymore. She's been like publicly humiliated and outed, and she's like her life is ruined. So the only way she can make money is as a pet psychic. And it's a really cute story, but the main character turns really, it feels she's the main character, but the police officer she works with has a police canine named Daisy, and Daisy it becomes almost the main character just because of her snark and her everything. So it's yeah. If
Yeah.
you want a funny read, Aaron Johnson's Pet Psychic series, she has sales where you can get all of the books together as like one book for like 99 cents, and she does that a couple times a year. Um, um,
Sam. Oh gosh.
and Were Cows, yeah.
So
Um,
yeah, I'm with Sky on the answer one. Both depends on the story. Sometimes animals are just props in the story, and sometimes they are characters who help progress the story further. Yeah. Sometimes they can become like Mr. Darcy, a favorite thing in the book
yeah,
that you're looking forward to.
yeah. No, that's well. Here's another thing. Okay, so um, with creatures that can turn into animals, with characters that can turn into animals, werewolves, werebears, dragon shifters, um, all those kind of things. As an author, you have characters that turn into dragons. Do you treat their dragon essence like the same level as the character, or do you drop them down a notch to that pet character level of treatment?
They're the same level.
Same
But
level?
here's something interesting, and I was just thinking about that. None of our Lycan have dogs. They don't. Um, I wonder if it's because they don't relate because they're so different. The supernatural part of them, the human part of them is so different, even though they do have Canis lupin Lycan. Um, so there's that. One of the more recent stories we told, it wasn't like it's a girlfriend who's interested in one of the younger Lycan that has the corgi. And he's had to figure that out because he doesn't, it's like there was an expectation, but he's like, no, what do we do here?
I've never had a
This,
dog.
yeah,
I may
he's
turn
never
into
had
a
a dog.
dog
He's never wanted a
adjacent.
dog. You know, he may act like that when he is in his wolf form, but there is kind of a little bit of a separation too. They are equal, but depending on what is in control is how things react. They will growl, the dragon even, like he has certain things that he does. He will nuzzle his lover instead of kissing him or anything like cheek to cheek, because that's a draconic thing. He will purr sometimes, and he will growl and act when he's angry, act very, very wild, very, very feral almost, if they get him pissed off enough. So it's kind of like having almost a dual personality going on when you're writing the characters. You've got to figure out which part of them is going to come through most at that point.
Yeah, when I was writing Cora, I had a thing. I had Cora and her mate Mark. Cora is extremely in touch with her wolf. They're basically like one being. Her mate Mark is completely at odds with his wolf, to the point that like his wolf will take over while he's asleep and do crap like eat his cowboy hat and chew up his boots. So yeah, it's very interesting to write these dual characters. Cat Paw says, you peeps would be the ones to ask. 20 years ago, I got a book from the library set in Chicago, alternating chapters between cat population and human. I can't remember much, including the author title, but I'd like to read it again. Oh my goodness. I want to read this book.
Right. I can try and find it. I'm not sure how well I'm going to do with trying to find it, because I have been trying to find a book that was about cheetah shifters back in the days of the pharaohs. And I can't find that for anything. And I've been trying to find it. You'd think that that'd be something easy to Google, but
yeah. There's a book about cats, libraries, and librarians, the cat life of library ladies, essays on the cat life of libraries. And I have been looking for that book. It was printed decades ago. And I have been looking for a copy of that book. The only copy I have found is at the Ohio State University Lending Library. And it is, because it's an out of print book, and they will not let it leave the campus, and you have to be a student to check it out. And I'm like, I just want to read it. Can you digitize it or something? I just want to read it. Yeah.
Our lichen.
With our lichen, we have them. It's almost kind of two separate at times, just so one part accepts doesn't mean the other part does.
Yeah.
Urban fantasy-esque. Ow, 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 ow. Hello, Abyss. Abyss is mad because Enie's taken over the lap, and he's big, and there's no room for Abyss. And so Abyss is just hanging on the side of my leg. There's a little space right there. Now, be nice.
That's adorable. I'm going to get right up here in your face.
Yeah. That's Abyss. This is Abyss, and Nixie is her sister.
Hair time.
Yes, hi. You're a good kitty. Yes, the bitey void. Yeah, these murder mittens.
Good morning, Rider Sanctuary. Carrie.
All right. Carrie's in. Hello, Michael. How are you today? Michael and I are both having lovely, lovely weather in Colorado today. It's like in the 50s. It's like in the 50s and 60s and like breezy. So yeah, it's going to be a lovely day.
So what else do we want to talk about when it comes to this?
Okay, I think that's good. I just wanted to touch on this because it's, we are pet lovers. We have pets in our books. We give them side character level placements. And it's just, and I think it's interesting that, there are some people who just, the pets become a prop.
Yeah, because I mean, when you think about it, I was just thinking, I mentioned the two because the two horror, both of them by Stephen King, to begin with, because I felt like that was a bad thing that happened to the pet, and therefore people could have taken that wrong, but they wound up being bestsellers. But I
Mhm.
think it's because he did make them characters
Yeah.
instead of props.
Yeah.
No matter how many bad things happened to them, they were characters. Same way with General in Cat's Eye.
Yeah.
They were he was a character. He popped actually from story to story to story in the short story series. So
Yeah. The thing that I think about is, oh goodness, there was a movie about divorce that was come out in the 90s. I can't even remember about it. I just remember that there was this one scene. It was, I think it was Linda Turner. It was a blonde actress was the wife, and I want to say Michael Douglas was the husband, and Danny DeVito was the divorce lawyer. But they were like, their life was perfect. Their kids moved out of the house, and then they just War of the Roses,
that's
War of
it.
the Roses. And there's a scene where she serves him like dinner, and he's like, "Oh, it's pate. I really like it." And she goes, "Woof," implying that she had cooked the dog.
Oh my gosh.
And then they tried to kill each other, and they screened that movie, and that scene traumatized viewers so much they were like, I hate this movie. So they had to put a clip in later of the dog watching them attacking each other to prove that, to say that
She didn't,
she
but
didn't really
she
kill the dog. She just implied that she killed the dog, because in the first screening the thought that she had actually killed and cooked the dog was just like, no, people didn't want anything to do with that.
Sam, if you find it, let me know the title of it because I want to read it again, but just be aware it is very tragic. It is a very tragic book.
Yeah.
I cried during that book. And I was young. So I can still remember the premise and everything, but I can't remember the title of it.
Hey, Jen, welcome, welcome. Everybody's talking. Hello, Margaret. Welcome, welcome. Sam says, I did not totally get caught up in searching with books or cheater shippers. Nope. Yeah, yeah. War of the Roses. All the spice. Yeah, unfortunately, um, anything with shifters, if you Google it, you are going to go down a spicy book wormhole.
That's my problem. It's like it was not titled anything, and the term shifters wasn't a thing really
No,
when I
no.
read this book. So I I don't know what it was called, but the premise of the story is the pharaoh had protectors. And honestly, come to think of it, they might not have been shifters, but they were the main characters. So they were cheetah, but they were king cheetahs, like darker markings, and some of them were even black. And they were there to protect the pharaoh, who was a boy. So I'm assuming that this might have been Tutankhamun that they were writing about. And then when he gets killed and everything happens, they get banished, and so they're getting destroyed, like people are trying to kill them. And so the main character, which is female, escapes, and now these cheetah know how to read. They know how they are intelligent. And so when she's out in the wild and she comes across regular cheetah, she thinks, "Oh, this is great. There are more of us." But then she realizes they're not the same. And so then everything keeps going from there, telling her story about trying to find others like her and everything that happens to her after that. So it is it's heart wrenching, but at the same time, I sometimes you really, really want to relive that. You want to reread it, kind of like Where the Red Fern Grows and things
Yeah.
like that. Charlotte's Web, you know that the spider is not going to make it, but at the same time, you love the story. Yeah. So that's where I was.
Okay. Let's move on to the next question. Creating parents as side characters, even if they don't appear in a book. What do you do with parents? Do you kill them? Do you keep them? This is like this is kind of the Disney thing of killing the parents or removing the parents. This started with Disney in like the 60s of removing the parents from the storyline. And it got picked up again in the 90s and early 2000s with all the YA dystopia that was coming out. So when you're creating parents, parents have a huge formative impact on people. So when you're creating your characters, what do you do to create? Because like we know that like Phineas and Seth, his son is Seth, they have a very rocky relationship. Whereas when you go to the Wayland's pack, there is this very supportive parent-child relationship.
Seth calls Devin Papa Wolf and Eva Mama Wolf for a reason, because they pretty much helped raise him, because he was best friends from Russ since they were like before teenagers. So that's, and Phineas was not in the picture. When Phineas could be in the picture, he turned away from the picture because of reasons. He didn't want to put Seth in danger. He's actually got another son out there. And he will become a very important character. Well, in this case, I don't know that should count, because Phineas is the main character of the series.
Yeah.
So we have to have his story. But when it comes to writing our characters, we tend to come up with our characters, and then we want to flesh in the background. So that's when we reach back for who they were, who raised them. Gabriel, for instance, which I know he's also a main character, but we didn't have to bring in anything about his parents or anything, but we did. And I feel like it made it made Gabriel easier to understand. And I see where you're saying that about Seth. It makes that person easier to understand.
Gabriel's parents, so they give a good perspective about why Gabriel is as emotionally closed off as he is. Because his dad was a smuck, his mom was an enabler.
Mm-hmm.
And he was kind of the accessory in the room.
He was the accessory. They needed to have a kid. They had a kid. And this was back when they got together because of that. Two major families that got together, and I think that we tried to do that in that, we were showing that even though our world and Ordia are two different worlds, and in the way that people are, and it's like, oh, but still, you got to remember, it wasn't that long ago that, and we do still have this in certain cultures, that marriages were arranged for the betterment of the family. They're not, they weren't in love. That's just what happens. So yeah, it was definitely explains why Gabriel has the mental divergence that he has, and what he has to do about it. And Phineas comes along and is like, no, you don't need to do that. No, you don't. No, you got to understand. Doing that is like, that's what they taught you, and that's not right. And it's funny because Phineas has been such a crap father, but yet he's taking on this role, not the fatherly role with Gabriel, but more the, hey, you do realize that not what William should have done. That's not what your father should have done. Even though it's like almost, and then you have Seth over here looking at this going on, and he's like, hypocrite. Hello.
See, I have in all of my series, I have the range of parents. In Relic of Time Wars, I think the biggest difference was between Daisy as a mother who would literally die for her children or anyone else's children. She's got that level of warrior momism, you know, and that she basically she becomes like a mother figure to many of the younger Etherians once they get to Etheria Prime and start rebuilding the kingdom. But she would do anything for him. And the alternate is like the shadow followers like Lady Eva and Lady Samaza, who they literally sacrificed their own infant children to fill the blood altars of the shadows. They tortured their own children, and even at several points tried to kill their adult children. And in Pagosa Cliffs, I have the same thing. I have like the main character in Pagosa Cliffs and Enemies in the Bakery series, my baker Millie. Millie grew up under a violently abusive mother until she was 6 years old. And then she was taken away from Diva. Diva was put in prison, and the Haywoods adopted Millie. And then she had the dream parents, the caring, loving, attentive parents, got her therapy, got her help, supported her dreams. And then you find out later that Diva is the one who actually she traded a work furlough shift with another inmate, snuck out and killed them, and then went back to jail so that she would have an alibi as to who actually murdered Dr. and Mrs. Dr. Haywood. So, I've got the swings of the parents that are, I kill some of my parents leave, some of my parents, in Stars Over Pagosa, I have this battle royale with a parent who is literally, she's a corporate whistleblower. When they sent the assassins to kill them, her daughter was severely traumatized in one of the attacks, and she lives with crippling guilt to the point that she is willing to give up her daughter forever just so she can live. So it's, you have these characters, and you can have characters that are completely off screen and never seen, and then you have these characters that are on page and in the thing. But even the parents that aren't mentioned, that aren't seen, they have this fundamental impact. Like in Pagosa Cliffs, you never see Lloyd McConnell's mother, but her bitterness and her resentment against his father for cheating on her shapes Lloyd into this very suspicious, very, very, like, everything can be taken out of context as a threat by him. And everything turns into this bitterness in him just because of his mother's influence. And you never see her. She gets no page time in the entire 7-book series. No page time at all.
So we have that. Jonathan Kennedy is mentioned. We don't really bring him up. He's the grandfather of both. The father of Rose and the grandfather to Gabriel and his cousins. And we see him mostly through memories. We see him through memories, and that's it. But he was so important to also important to shaping Gabriel and also his aunt and cousins. Also with Amelia, his wife, same thing. Like she died while Gabriel was just a kid, and it's just through memories that we see how impactful these people were on all the characters. I mean, even including Sebastian. Sebastian remembers them. So he knows too. Then I like doing that sometimes, because then you leave this air of mystery. You leave this idea in your readers' minds of hey, there was somebody really important, and they were important to the point that they affected everybody really in the series. But, I wonder what they were like. I wonder, and that could, as somebody who likes to keep going with stories, could turn into future stories if you go do prequels, or if you do just stories about the characters later on. But at the same time, I really don't know that I would want to when it comes to him. We did that with, who did we do that with? For instance, I guess, well, Kieran became a very important character in the books. Kieran, being Devon's father, and his relationship was good to a point, and then they realized, hey, he makes mistakes too. He's not always right. And then they're like, okay, not only is he not always right, but he's going downhill right now. So we need to do something about that. And
how do
he
you
has
deal with
broken one of them.
how do you deal with a parent who thinks they're making the right choices for everyone, but ends up doing more harm than good? Like generationally harm than good, while they think they're doing the thing to make everything better for everyone.
I use research into generational trauma. I'm part of a specific type of generational trauma. I stopped it.
Same.
So I feel like it was cathartic to write about that, because and Kieran later on, he does change, and he does make the changes within the pack. Same way with Devon. Devon's very traditional. So you're going to see in future stories where Devon has to change, and then he has to try and convince the elders, because that's a whole other pack when you think about it, on different sides of the portals. So they're still very traditional, and there are things that they don't like. I mean, I believe one of the quotes that we've seen later on, when it comes to his kids, is, when is one of my kids going to actually date a Lycan? What is going on here? We maybe we made a mistake coming over, because they're finding love with other beings instead of their own kind. And that just, for him as a Lycan, that's tradition that is just being blown apart, and he's got to come to grips with that. And he's also then got to convince the old guard that this is okay, this is going to be okay, we're not going to, we're not angering the goddess because of this. So I think
Yeah,
it's a learning. I think it's a learning thing when you write about stuff like that.
I went
You're
ahead and
teaching
jumped
people.
ahead. I went ahead and jumped ahead to question 4 because it seems to fit more on what we're talking about. And we can go
Okay,
back to question 3
excuse
later.
me.
And yeah, it's like how far do you push this line of the good parent, the bad parent, the apathetic parent, the absent parent, or the saint parent scale? How do you swing, because you can't just write them as stagnant. I have
No,
tons of parents. I have tons of parents and grandparents in my books, generational things. And I have characters that, like the Ursic family in Pagosa Cliffs. You get this idea as the book goes on that they've never been good people. Yeah, they own the local bank and they're one of the larger ranches, but you really start to get this idea that they are not good people. They have never been good people, and no generation of them has been good people. They have that veneer of wealth and culture and relatability, but underneath they're all about their addictions and their money and things. And when the youngest granddaughter of the family dies, you really see how disconnected this family is. But yeah, it's very interesting, and to have these layers in your book to create a context that is relatable to readers, because we've all seen that family that had the perfect parents. And and were they the perfect parents, or were they those Brady Bunch perfect on the outside parents? because that was the family I grew up in. Everyone was like, "Oh, your family, well, and I'm like, you have no idea how many fracture lines I have in my bones, how many bruises I hide under my clothes."
Yeah, it's a matter of, for me, it was when I'm writing those characters, what do I see? What have I experienced? Most of our good parents, they weren't perfect. They were doing the best that they knew how to do, and that's where we get, even as perfect as Devin and Ava seem to be, they had their mistakes. They will continue to have their mistakes, but they're trying to be the best that they can be. And then you have those parents who are like William Kennedy, Andrew Kennedy. You have um, Leah, who is Twilight and Derek's mother. They're all stuck, stagnant, and we know people like that, or narcissists, um, that they just care about what this child does for them and what the child does for the pack or the family, and that's all that they use them for. So, yeah, because I witnessed stuff like that growing up, and I saw the different spectrums of how parents evolved, and then also my evolution. I mean, think about the fact that, let's like, I'm a Gen Xer. I come up, my parents were very hands off unless I did something to piss them off. And then they were not so hands off in a bad way. So
Yeah.
it was a matter of being raised like that, justifying it in my mind at first, and then realizing, this sucks. This should stop. This is not something I want to do.
Yeah.
I love my kids. I think taking stuff away from them would be a lot more effective than corporal punishment ever was. So
Yeah.
it's kind of that evolution. That's just one example, but you know,
Well,
uh,
it's like the
that's
contrast between what they call gentle parenting and what is actually no discipline parenting. And gentle parenting is where you talk to your children, you talk them down, you have a discussion about what this is. But the thing is it doesn't stop there. Your children have to have consequences,
mhm.
and you literally need to say, okay, so this was wrong, what are the consequences? And there's this whole group of people that have this idea of gentle parenting, and I saw this back in the 90s. They were starting to do this back in the 90s, where you do not tell a child no until they turn 5 years old.
Oh,
and
you,
and and
you can't
and
do that.
by the time you reach that point, the child, if you don't, they have no respect for you, they do not listen to you, and no is just a word that they don't have to obey. And so, yeah, it's very interesting. I have very hands-on parents. Camille Wallace is the mother in the Pagosa Cliff series. The Wallace clans, the matriarch of the Wallace clan, Doreen Wallace. They would do anything for their children and grandchildren, to the point that Camille almost gets herself killed trying to protect her daughters. And um, it's it's very interesting to write this level of parenting where Camille knows she's flawed. She knows that she has issues, and she knows that her issues, she's trying very hard not to let her issues touch her children. But sometimes, as a parent, you can't protect your children, no matter how carefully you raise them, no matter how much you pay attention. Sometimes bad things just happen. And I think flawed parents, parents who are either caught in generational trauma cycles, or who are in society trauma cycles, because that's what happened to Camille. Is she lost her parents, raised by her elderly aunt and grandparents, and she had a good life until this assault happened, and her life view just shattered. And so, yeah, breaking the generational trauma cycle in my family, but it will be my kids who officially break it, because there's times I fall back into the bad ways, quick to anger, hot to temper, and all. Yeah. These cycles, the reason that they resonate with readers in books is because either we've lived through it or we know someone who's lived through it. It's a relatable thing. The concept was something that was meant no, but not used in negative framing. Heather says, my YA age MC parents' pivotal backstory is part of the plot for substitute parenting is keeping many secrets plus inconsistency in their parenting.
Do you put them out there? Like, do you actually write about them, or do you just put them as background? I'm curious because that's one of the questions we had before. It's like, do you mention them, or do you actually write them in
Yeah,
frame?
are your parents props or are they characters? The same with the pets. Are they props or are they characters? Um, there are good days, there are bad days, and I don't have
Yeah.
to. Clue, you found her. Communication marks a good parent.
I just I got a rating. I got a good rating. Thumbs up. My kids are adults, and we had this conversation, I guess a couple of years ago now. And I was like, so I just want to tell you guys, I'm sorry if I did stuff that hurt you. I did the best I could. And I know that there were times when they got spanked or, what have you, or there was an immediate reaction and maybe it wasn't the best reaction, Um, uh, there were times when we had the um, Jamie Foxx version of stop in the back of the head, and it was it was meant to knock them out of the moment, and it did. But at the same time, I was like, I want you to know that what was done, we did because that was what we were taught. It was what we had to break out of. And in once they got to a certain point, I had changed enough that we were just basically taking stuff away from them. By that time, internet was a thing, so we were taking phones away from them. We were taking their internet access away from them, and things like that. That they were like, oh my gosh, that's no, Um, but they told me as adults, they told me that I did a good job. That they would rate me with a thumbs up. Because they got to talk to other people once they moved out. They got to talk to other people, and they got to actually witness what other people went through that were their age with their parents. So apparently, James and I rock. Um, and the main goal for us was to be like, okay, well, we want you guys to come talk to us if you've got a problem, not be afraid to talk to us if you've got a problem.
Yeah.
And that became a running theme with Devin and Ava for all of their kids. As a matter of fact, one of them even there's one of them that even made the mistake of telling them something that they didn't know what to do with. They weren't sure what to do at that point. So that went through a whole story arc that we haven't gotten to yet, but yeah, it's in the future.
See, that's what I did with the
So
Wallace clans with Camille. Camille talks to her girls about everything. She explains to them about everything, and she admits she's like, I have issues as a mom, but this is this thing, and to make sure she has that open communication. Whereas when you look at the Ballard clan, when you look at Tiana and her mother Tanya Ballard, it has been a constant cycle of abuse, even before her parents got divorced. And she just knows that she has to maintain this appearance. She has to look a certain way. Even after diving practice before school, she has to fix her hair perfectly, fix her makeup perfectly, because her mom's a teacher at the high school. She has to look the appearance of the
perfect.
McConnell Ballard clan, who owned the biggest ranch after the Ridge Line in Pagosa County, and she has to have that. I have to have that perfect makeup, perfect hair, or my mom's going to get me. She knows that if anything in the house is dirty and her mom finds it, she's going to be in trouble. If she leaves a bowl in the sink, if she doesn't rinse out a bowl in the sink, her mom will get mad and throw all the ice cream away in the house, just out of spite, because ice cream will make you fat. You don't need it. Um, and her mother manipulates her into finding information out about other people so she can take advantage of this, and it's a very, very toxic situation. And then she gets through her mother's machinations, her mother basically sells her to a pedophile at 16, right, like the week of her, before her
Yeah.
17th birthday, and she ends up having the worst 3 days of her life that any woman could ever go through. And her mother's like, "Oh, how did you sleep?" Acting like nothing happened. And
That's frightening.
and it's like the thing is this is based on a real mom. Tanya Ballard is based on two real moms that I knew, that it was like facing their kids and going, "Sweetie, you need to go to the police. You need to talk to your grandparents, to someone else. You got it. This is not right. What is being done to you?" So yeah, one ended up in a court case, and one ended up with the girl basically going to live with her father, who was dying of cancer at the time. And sadly, she never got the help she wanted, and she ended up overdosing and dying.
And that's how much a parent has an effect on a child in reality. And so when we're writing them, that's what we draw from, because that's
Yeah.
what we know. That's what we've
My
seen. That's what we
my
witnessed.
daughters have okay, so I have a stepdad, my stepdad Jim. He's great. I love him. He is, that he is the great step parent trope. He is that stepdad. When he and my mom divorced, I actually went more toward him than toward her because of how toxic she is. But my biological father and my husband's biological father, both of them were horrible, alcoholic, abusive men. And our daughters never met them in person while they lived. My daughters met their grandfather on 3 different supervised occasions when they were infants, but they have not had any contact with him literally since my youngest child was a year old. Um, because of things. And it's like, yeah. So writing characters with that kind of level of disconnect it enriches your book world, but it also helps you deal with like your internalized struggle with things, and the struggles that you've seen others go through. Yes, we can use our books to help people break generational trauma. I'm just saying. She was sitting with her toddler and kept raising her hand, and the toddler laughed as if it were a game because she'd never hit him once.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's
That
a
might,
very important conversation. Yeah, I've written that to Sky. I think it's a very important conversation to have.
yeah, we've had that with our girls, and our girls are like, "Thank you for being the parents you were, even if you were struggling with other things," because it's
Well, I mean,
hard.
they didn't even know half the stuff that we were struggling with, which is, I guess, a good thing at the time. You want your kids to be kids.
Yeah,
You don't want them to understand the struggles that you're dealing with in the background. And now that they're adults, they realize it. So they're like, oh wow, grand monsters.
yeah, it's very interesting. When we were growing up, the kids knew we didn't have much, that we were poor and stuff, and it would be like, okay, so we have your baby goats, and we have this, and the kids learn that, if we need income to do stuff, we need to sell some of the animals, or we need to go out and work. And if I buy this, it's this many bags of feed, or or something equivalent. And so from a very early on, they understood the working of farm life versus, yeah, your friends all have gaming consoles and we can't afford a gaming console because that's the equivalent of 10 bags of livestock feed. It portrays parents as flawed in the stories they come across widely as good parents, and then you
Yeah.
decide to write the prequel when they're flawed, and it'll hit different.
Yeah, because it's like our Kieran has he's going through a redemption arc, but he was messed up.
Oh yeah, his arc is huge. His arc is huge. It's like in Relic, Caleb always appears to be the perfect father. He's supportive. He's there. He's you see him, especially in the first two books. And then after book 4, you meet him again in book 4. But the thing is Caleb has, because he's an older semi-immortal, he has this like mindset that, and because his father was an oracle and told him things he wasn't supposed to tell him, he has this mindset that he knows best. And this becomes a real struggle for his wife Daisy and his son Karsten later in the books, because it's like, how much did Caleb keep from us? Why didn't he trust us?
Carrie, this is important.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes it makes the parent relatable, and it's the parent admitting they weren't perfect. It's so important. And that's one of the things in writing. It's the ones that don't admit it, that either don't care or they won't admit that are going to be the ones that don't get a redemption arc. The other ones are the ones that are like, look, I mean, I know how I was when I was a teenager. So I'm just making sure that you're okay, because you're fixing to go through some stuff. Because when it comes to our Lycan and our vampires, especially, when they start hitting puberty on up, there's a certain section there that it's crazy beyond human reckoning going through the teenage years. So
yes, yeah, I have characters that totally admit that, yeah, oh, that thing, yeah, I did that thing. Knocked your uncle off the barn with a homemade catapult, broke his arm when we were kids. Yeah, I was that dumbass. So yeah, it's whereas, you have a character like Tanya Ballard who never admits that she did anything wrong, even though she bullied classmates to the point of suicide attempts. Never, even at the end of her arc, she is still blaming everyone else and trying to force Tiana into a subservient role, that everything is your fault. You're the reason for my problems. And
bad.
Yeah.
Evil.
My daughter's gone through a lot on her own. I'm very proud of her. She could have turned out so much differently. Every time we see the kids' friends in public and they grin and greet me, whether the kids are with me or not, I love it so much. Yeah, I loved that feeling. I loved that feeling of, having everybody else call me mama, and knowing that they can come and talk to me. Yeah, my parents had the illusion of being the cool ones, the supportive ones, but it was more like getting stuff to blackmail other parents with. So my house with friends came often, summer parties. Yeah, maybe 1 or 2. My college bestie went with me for long weekend rides. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When you're a poor family and you're like, okay, getting this thing, we need, you need to think about how many of your baby goats, how many of your chickens, how many of your geese are you going to sell to get this thing? And like, there was one time that one of my daughters, she sold one of her one of her showbucks to get the money to so that I could cater her friend's 18th birthday party at her college criminal justice class, because her friend's parents, just up the week of her birthday, decided that they were going to go on vacation in another country.
Oh my goodness.
And so, yeah, we had a big party for her. They're still friends. So yeah, the time you put in your children shows up. Oh my goodness, I'm so far behind on the comments. I'm so sorry, everyone.
No, that's the reason I pressed pause on my explanations and stuff so we can go through comments. You guys are talkative. It's fantastic. I love it.
It's amazing.
I've been reading them. If you see me look to the side, I've got another screen over here. I'm reading it. reading it.
Yeah, I actually have the auto scroll turned off so that I can keep where we are at in the comments. Oh, Carrie, the bestest mom in the whole world. I love because that I've imagined my mom, that sort of mom my entire life. She's single, she's divorced, she's an ex-Catholic, she drank on weekends, she dated, she was a feminist. My parents basically dropped my brother and myself off at our grandmother's place and took off when I was like 3. Then we were in high school. They wanted to be parents all of a sudden. Yeah.
Oh, awkward. No.
Yeah. If I can, I feel that Mama Ward, my mom was the same, narcissist, nothing else. Yeah. Yeah. And my bio mom was toxically codependent. And yeah, I realized that when I was a teenager, actually, probably earlier than that, I realized this, the number of times that I was raising my siblings and my father's behaviors were my fault. I did not make him go out and get drunk. I did not make him screw some of my classmates, single mothers. And I was the adult. I was the adult pretty much from the time I was like 5 years old and changing my siblings' diapers. And yeah, so a lot of the teenageriness that I write in my books, I have to get from my own teenagers because I didn't have that experience.
Yeah. That's a that's a personal decision. I am behind you 100% though, because yeah.
Bye, Carrie. Have a good day. Household was tough 2 years old with my mother. We had no extended family until I was. Yeah. When people talk about mothers at a funeral, I like look around us. I'm like, are we talking about the same person?
Yeah. Well, and then there's this. I don't know if it's everywhere, but there's this thing that goes on in our culture wherein when somebody dies, suddenly they're a saint. And I'm just like,
yes, speak no ill of the dead. Yeah. My sisters did not even invite me to my biological father's funeral because they knew that people in the South will not speak ill of the dead, and I have no such things when it comes to him. I mean, I would tell people straight to their face, and when he was living, that he was a schmuck.
Yeah, Sam, I wouldn't say that's toxic. I would say that's a precocious 8-year-old.
Being part of a family being a parent is tough. Yeah, we're all growing up for the first time, including our parents. Give grace whenever possible.
That's the reason a lot of my parents, even though they were toxic to begin with, they're allowed to have a redemption in the end if they can manage it, but they've got to work for it.
I have some of my parent arcs to where I have some of my parents who they don't get redemption. They choose.
Yeah, William Kennedy never gets a redemption.
It's about the choice of, Tanya Ballard, her choice is to not be a good person till the very end. Um, Diva Divina Velvet, her choice is not to be a good person till the end of her life. Um, and there's level and good and bad. Like the Miranda Rose arc. She is completely her soul is completely crippled with the bullying she endured in high school, what happened in high school and everything. And when her mother finds out that this expensive, exclusive, elite girls boarding school she sent her to after her suicide attempt was basically a torture factory where they basically did everything but sexually assault the girls to make them get good grades and to make them become thin. It was like fat camp, boot camp, and college prep all in one school. And when Millicent finds out what was done to Miranda at the school, Miranda thinks she was just abandoned by her family because her mom was too busy dealing with her alcoholic brother after her father's death. And she feels abandoned by like literally everyone that she's ever known. So coming back to Pagosa is like her version of going to hell to live. And Millicent is literally just, and her Miranda's brother Vernon, like they spend all the time after finding out what happened at the Ivy Institute trying to reconnect with Miranda because they're like, we're so sorry. And she's like, look, the Ivy Institute could have been the best school in the world and it would have felt like prison because I needed my family. So yeah, writing parental arcs, that is a great place to put on a story. Yep. That seemed to be a trend with Gen Xers of having this parent balance of an abusive
Enabler.
an,
The
an
enabler.
abusive narcissist and a codependent enabler.
Yep. It makes me wonder if that's that's how the generation was raised.
Yeah. I completely agree with you, Sky.
So and this is cool because it brings me to how do you write that? How do you write that in your books? We have Lycan who are not allowed to. They don't mention the dead. So it's kind of like this. They don't mention the dead, and then we have the dragons who are like, oh hell no, you're not going to cover the truth on that. So
Yeah.
it depends on the culture.
Yeah. Well, like people who are Dene or Navajo, as they're commonly called, you don't mention the dead. Once they're prepared and buried, you do not mention them by name ever again. A lot of the native tribes are like, once the dead are gone, they're gone, and we don't speak of them. Because you don't want to call their spirits back. But yeah, it's
unfortunately that leads to trauma that's not dealt with sometimes.
And it leads to a loss of truth. It leads to a loss of truth, generational truth. You can't learn from your ancestors' mistakes if no one ever speaks about them.
Sometimes.
It feels that way. It really, really does.
So when my mom says stuff like that, I'm like, that. I only gave her a certain amount of grace because I would say after so long, you've got to be like, okay, well, I've tried. I've extended the olive branch. You're cutting it off with electric shears. So apparently you don't need any more of those olive branches.
Yep. The ability to change, but refuses.
What? I have a Doge. She's over here like, it's 12. I'm supposed to get my snack.
Those of us with millennials with parents who are as old as y'all's. My parents are the same age as most millennial grandparents that went through the same thing. Yeah. Yeah. My parents were the same opposites. Mom's the narcissist, dad's the enabler. He's not codependent, but he doesn't correct her behavior either.
That is what I have
Yeah.
had.
Yeah. I love my parents, though they were good otherwise, not punishing hard, anything. They just worked. They loved us tons. Yeah.
Like, I can't say that my parents didn't love me. I feel like they loved me. They
Yeah.
just, I don't know. It's just, once the narcissist no longer had her enabler, she decided to go for other people that she could manipulate in her group setting. And I was like, okay, that's cool. Don't
See,
look at me.
My mom went from being the enabler to being the abuser.
Oof.
And because I was seeing her through the filter of my childhood, I didn't realize that the abuse that she had put on me as a child, that she was then putting on my oldest daughter. And yeah.
That's where it's so important to have that open doorway of communication, man.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was a thing because my younger two daughters would see it and they would not know even how to comprehend it. And, they went through years of guilt with their sister of feeling like, we should have said something, we should have helped protect you. But you were little kids then. You were little kids, and grandma would give you a piece of candy, or grandma would buy you a soda and say, don't say anything. Mommy or your mama will get mad at grandma and make her leave. So, but she still claims that she never did anything wrong. And I brainwashed my children into believing that she abused them. And I'm like, they came to me to tell me about this. We went through family therapy for years because of what you did. And you still haven't apologized to them.
You won't get an apology. That's not in the playbook.
Yeah. My stepdad, there's a reason that my stepdad still comes to us, still visits us, everything. And we love him.
Oh, that it's not in the playbook? No.
Okay, well, question number 3 that we skipped was a question about characters who become parents and the problems of left behind child characters. But I think
I need you to explain that one before I say anything, because I'm not sure what you mean.
Left behind children are it's actually something that is very recognized in Asian cultures, but is not so much recognized in American cultures. And it's basically where they have a child and they send it off to someone. They send it back to the country to live. They send it back to the grandparents or aunts and uncles.
Or boarding school?
Yeah, or boarding school. And like the Ursic family that I was talking about, the daughter Holly, who passes away in Stars Over Pagosa. She's one of these left behind children who she is the product of the second marriage. And then after her mom and dad divorced and her mom went through marriage number 3, then she got sent off to boarding school so mom could have husband number 3 and 4. So the problem of left behind children is like the
Dawn. Where did we come up with this? We have, think about it. Gabe, Ark, Seth. Yeah. The children that got raised by other people. And then there's also that jealousy. The jealousy that they're going to have with Izzy, and her siblings. And
see my just younger sister saw my parents as being great parents, but she was their precious little princess beauty queen. And the just younger than her was the sporty girl. So it wasn't until adultiness, we were getting into adultiness, that the abuse that the youngest brother and I, as the eldest, both suffered, that it became a discussion. And this is the thing that split our family. Yeah, but yeah, the guilt and jealousy of seeing siblings treated differently is so real. Yeah, the thing
But
is
that's kind
his
of
grandpa. The thing is when I was reading this part about Gabe's life, I really felt like his grandfather was saving him.
yeah.
You know, his grandfather couldn't go against his own son, but he wanted to save his grandson, and that was the way he did it.
Which is kind of like the child was left behind for the grandfather to
Yeah.
save.
Yeah, left behind children are children that like, are they a character, or are they a plot, or are they a plot point or prop? You know, and it's like, you know, and for these children to become characters, this is a very shaping thing for them. This is why found family becomes so important to them.
And you also have the trope of the lost one, the one that fell through the cracks. Gareth, for instance, fell through the cracks. So he had his problems. He was barely an adult, just barely an adult as far as liking are concerned. So he was still going through all those struggles mentally, and then for everything to happen to where he's stuck in a wolf's body, embracing that because he just doesn't want to deal with it anymore.
Yeah. Cat Pals, I was the replacement for the son they lost, never told us about, and it was not even a mini me, but the opposite. Bro was all they wanted. Popularity. Yeah. Yeah.
Found family is definitely a favorite. Yeah.
And as a Gen Xer, you know, the found family is seems to be, like, for us, the ones that endured. I have decades long friendships. My husband still goes out twice a year and hangs out with his buddy / brother that he's known since he was 8. He's got another one that he's known since he was 5, and they are still friends. We are 55 this year. So, you know, that's one thing that Gen Xers do is our found family becomes our eternal
So
friendship.
much shifted during our generation and the elder millennials generation that I think that's part of why the found family appeals so much.
Hi, Joanne.
Joanne!
Yeah, a lot of love for the found family trope here.
Another thing that I'm going to do an article on is Gen X and their love of mature characters. There's two different kind of readers when it comes to this. There's the ones that love the nostalgia of reading about teenagers to young adults. And then there's the ones that are like, you know, here I am in my 50s, and you know what? I'm not dead. So why aren't there more characters my age out there doing stuff, you know? And so you get both.
Yeah, I have found myself reading a lot of, like, midlife books, and yeah, a lot of them have spiciness in them, and it's like that. I appreciate it as a menopausal woman, but also it gets kind of annoying. I want the story more. It's like after okay, people, after the 4th scene, just why I understand that she's divorced, and like rediscovering herself and her own internalized magic and beauty and stuff like that. But okay, yeah, he's hot and every younger or a shifter or whatever.
When
He's
does
a
it become
vampire or
erotica,
a
though?
shifter or he's hotter. Yeah, okay. I'm enjoying the story of midlife mom rediscovering who she is after spending decades as wife and mom. Can you please? I'm just skipping these pages. I'm just letting you know, as a completely 100% honest reader, I skip these pages because I'm not the thirst talk girl. Okay, I'm not the thirst talk book talk girl. I'm just
Everyone loves Rose's story. Exactly. Because it's relatable to having that midlife crisis and trying to figure out, why am I here? Why am I here? Like, I had so much more to my life, and I'm not just a mother, just somebody that takes care of your books, just somebody who's the accountant. And yes, I'm going to let you out the door. I will be right back because this dog.
We're actually done with the topic.
Oh, so okay. So I'll wait. You can wait. Yes, ma'am.
Just give me 2 minutes and I'll start the video, baby. I love you. You're a good dog.
Just like I'm being so patient. I know.
Yes, we do. All right. I just want to say thank you, everyone, for coming today. We were going to do this last weekend, but then it was like, no, it's Mother's Day. We're going to take the day off. And so here's all of this. Rachel, lovely author, Rachel D. Adams, along with Don McKellen, authors of the Dragon Tasker series, now available. Yes, dragons and doppelgangers and demons and all
vampires, the kind of liking it.
All the things. And I am Mama Maggie Ward, independent author, stroke survivor, migraine sufferer. And I have lots of books out, including stories in the Beltane and the Bog Hag anthology. So be sure to check those out. Support Quill Cottage Small Animal Rescue. Yeah.
Today's topic is for us.
Be blessed. Have a very lovely day and enjoy the rest of the weekend.